It looks like a fair amount of people have joined us so far, so we'll get everything started, and the everyone else that's going to join will join here in the next few minutes. But thanks again for everybody for joining us today. We've got a kind of unique topic. You know, in the past few quarters, you've heard us talk about different investment strategies or financial analysts that have come on to talk, but today we have a topic kind of near and dear to my heart, and I think it's an important topic for us to all learn about and navigate through. Caregiving, whether it's a somebody you live with, a parent, a grandparent, a friend, neighbor, etc., is such a hot topic these days with the baby boomers and aging population. I was introduced to Azimuth Healthcare, and it really hit home as far as what they do, and thought this would be an important topic for clients to hear about. So invited them on today and wanted to give them the stage to talk through their company and what they do and how they help. And I appreciate everybody joining. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Robert, one of the founders, and let him take over. So thanks again for joining us.
Thank you so much, Matt. Appreciate it. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, yeah, we hear you great. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you for everyone that is with us. As Matt said, I'm Robert Witham, one of the co-founders for Azimuth Healthcare. Really excited to be with everyone today. As Matt mentioned, we're going to talk about navigating the caregiver journey. Our goal is to help you be a little bit more educated in this space. You may find yourself on this journey now, or know someone that's on this journey, or potentially think that you might be on this journey. And everyone on our team at Azimuth Healthcare has personally been through this journey. So we have that personal experience, but we've also had the professional experience of working in healthcare for many, many decades. So we have a lot of experience on our team. But with that said, again, we're going to help you think through different tools and resources that you need to think about engaging and using, and then also kind of the stages of the caregiver journey. So with that said, we're going to start to move along here. This is the agenda that we have. As everyone comes up and on our team and starts to speak through some of this information, I'll have them just introduce themselves. But as mentioned, we're going to go through some goals and these first, second three bullet points here talk about the expectant, the freshman, and the entrenched caregiver. And then we will wrap it up with a few different things. So with that said, I will turn it over to Shannon.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Hi, I'm Shannon Marling, and I am a gerontologist. I'm the education specialist with Azimuth, and I'll let you go and introduce yourself.
I'm Ingrid Kaiser. I'm a nurse with 4 decades of experience in nursing, case management, discharge planning, and caring for others.
Thank you. So I love Robert did a great job kind of bringing us into the conversation, and I think Rosalind Carter really does bring it all completely to light, that there are really only 4 kinds of people in the world, and that those individuals are those who have been caregivers, which some of you may be, those who are currently caregivers, those who will be caregivers. And this can, obviously, when we talk about caregiving, it can be, adults, it can be parents, it can be children, it can be friends, and those who will need a caregiver. And so because of that, thank you, Rosalind Carter, for that. We come to you today to kind of introduce you into the world of caregiving, and you might find yourself in a multitude of these stages. And Robert, do I just hit this button right here? So we want to talk a little bit about the stages, and I'm going to come back to this slide. So the first thing we want to talk about is the expectant caregiver. This is an individual who is coming into, when we talk about those who may need care, right? And so when we're in that phase of the expectant caregiver, we want to ask the individual who needs care, and this, you may find yourself being an expectant caregiver down the road. It may be coming very quickly. It may be something that you're planning for as you guys are working with your financial planner, but you want to ask your loved one, what are your wishes and values, right? So this is the phase where we're doing a lot of asking questions. What is the role? What is your role now? What will your role be in the future? What do you have in place currently for care for yourself? What do you already know? What do you know this person has available? What do you know is coming? What do you know resources that they have available? And who is this? Who is in this with you, right? So we know as we go into the caregiver phase, right, that this may not just be us, right? That we're not doing this necessarily alone. Who are the people that are involved in this process with you? And then you want to ask yourself, right? Because it's going to be really important as the expectant caregiver that we don't lose sight of ourselves within that. What are my wishes and values? What is my role now and what is it going to be in the future? And what do I want it to be? And am I okay with the expectation maybe of the loved one and my role in caregiving? What do I have in place to care for myself? Anybody who's been a caregiver, and this even includes a caregiver of a dog. We know that it can really take a lot from you, right? So what do I have in place to care for myself? What do I already know? What do I know about caregiving? What do I know about services and resources? What do I know that this person has in place? So you're taking stock in the things that you already know and that you already have in place. And then who is in this with me? Not just who is in this with the individual who might need care, but who is in this with me. And that can be those people that are directly involved in the caregiving. That can also be those people that are involved peripherally. So that's kind of where we are in the expectant caregiver to make sure that we're asking all of those questions. I love this, right? Those of you that have kids, maybe that just recently finished up college, we all remember that freshman caregiver, right? That freshman phase, whether that was in high school or in college. And what do you do when you're a freshman, right? This is where you find out what is the semester going to look like? What are the things that are available to you? What are the things that we're going to be looking for in that freshman caregiving phase? This is when you are starting into the process of caregiving. The first thing you want to ask yourself, is this an immediate need, right? Are we in a situation where the person is in danger, the person is at risk, the person is in crisis, as we like to say? So is there an immediate need? And then where do I start? What is that immediate need once I've identified that? This may not be an immediate need either. This may be something that the person is going to slowly come into needing that caregiver. And so at that point, you've got time to look at what resources are in place and to determine, okay, where do I start? And that's kind of a lot of what we're going to talk a little bit about. Ingrid's going to talk a little bit about in a second. You know, when we think about where do I start, it's a complex system out there. It can be very hard to navigate that system and all of the different resources that are available out there. And I'm going to have Ingrid talk a little bit more about that network of services.
Hi, so this slide looks a little bit overwhelming when you first take a peek at it. And I want to kind of talk about two things here. I think firstly, this slide really exemplifies Azimuth Healthcare's mission. We keep our client at the center of all of our planning, all of our assessment, and the development of options for you. Secondly, you can see the complexity of the web that surrounds somebody who needs care. You will have to take a peek at what will I have to put in place, asking the questions like Shannon just said. Will I need somebody to be hospitalized? Will they need to be institutionalized? Will they require in-home care? Will it be 24/7 or episodic? Will they require transportation? Do I need to get a ramp in place? Do we need to set up specialist appointments? Does my insurance cover this? There are so many things that you have to think about and think through and plan for. It can be extremely overwhelming and intimidating, even to people who've had experience. You know, to us, we still have to kind of start at the beginning and take it one step at a time. But what we can do is do an evaluation and an assessment and start to develop that plan based on your goals, your desires, and your needs to give you the options for care that are going to be the best fit for you. So this again is taking that big, huge, complex web and breaking it down a little bit into more manageable pieces and sort of the typical things that you may experience. Again, you see that the client and the caregiver are at the center of this. Azimuth really is going to have you as our central focus of what we're planning for and towards, and listening to what it is that you want to have happen to your loved one. So there are many different institutions and companies that you'll need to reach out to. Most typically, you'll work with a managed care organization and insurance company. We'll help you with those types of services, with those processes. Is it covered? What do I need to get planned and pre-approved? Behavioral health providers, the same thing. And here in the Richmond area, we have discovered that it can often be difficult to find a timely appointment. And sometimes being in the healthcare field and having that in, we can cut that time down a bit for you. Government services. So the aid and attendance benefit and those types of things are going to be complicated application processes that can help people really access additional financial benefits. And we can connect you with services that can help with that, or we can help you with that as well and put you in touch with the right people to take that further. Transitional services. So say your loved one has been discharged from a facility and is now at home, but still requires some care. Do they require live-in care, an aide, a companion, somebody to give them a bath, to do some light housekeeping? Do you need it 24/7? Do you need it 8 hours a day, only when you go somewhere? Do you need physical therapy, occupational therapy, home health services? Which organizations, which companies that do that are going to be compliant with your insurance, and are they available? Can we get them? We can get that all organized for you. Primary care physicians, obviously they're the linchpin, the key to the whole thing. You need to keep them informed. We interact with them regularly to make sure that everything is going smoothly along with their plan and that information is communicated back and forth. Clinics and labs, setting up appointments, making sure you're going to your appointments, making sure that those things are happening to maintain that health status that you've reached is going to be critical. Healthcare facilities. So I can give you a little example here of a story. We had a client that was in a skilled nursing facility after an acute care hospitalization for an acute event. The family had not gotten any communication from the facility. They were concerned, was it covered by his Medicare Advantage plan? What did they need to do when he came home? We got involved. I talked to the social workers at the facility. I set up family training for the family to come in to learn about the deficits, to learn how to deal with that. We set up family meetings with the physicians at the facility as well. So they started to get that communication that they really needed. At discharge, because of the type of insurance that this client had, the social worker, the physician had ordered home health care services, and the social worker that was doing the planning at the facility was unable to find a participating home health care agency that could take this client. I started to call and reach around, and we really worked our system and our contacts, and I found a home health care agency that within a few days did agree to take this patient and to begin to see him at home for all of his skilled services. So that really was a win because it kept him safe in his home. Also, along that vein, because home health was delayed by a couple of days, we did utilize a medical service that came to the home when he had a little wrinkle the first couple of days after he came home, and they were able to diagnose, treat him in the home setting. Very reassuring to his family, eliminated a trip somewhere, and that was really, really helpful to him and everybody to maintain his health and to really get him perked back up again. Then transportation providers, sometimes you find that your loved one needs to go to an appointment and you just can't get them in and out of the car yet. They're still working with therapy, or you're unable to manage it because of the medical equipment they may have. We're able to help with that as well, to find a provider that's going to be able to get you where you need to be and set that up as a recurring visit or as a one-time, one-off need. But those are all the types of things that can come up after somebody has an event and that need to be planned for and thought about.
I don't know about y'all, but I do this for a living, and every time we do this presentation and I hear all that, it does remind you, right, how overwhelming this can be, and why an organization such as Azimuth, your job and our job is to really help you navigate all of those services. Just like Ingrid shared that awesome story, and I love that story that you shared, really around how we work with the families in order to help navigate that system that's in front of you right now. So that was a great story. Thanks for sharing that. Like I said, that can all feel really overwhelming. And one of the things that we did talk about in the very beginning, right, is how do we also take care of ourselves? So if you're a freshman caregiver, and then the next phase we talk a little bit about is going to be the expected caregiver, you might be feeling kind of overwhelmed right now. So I like to take people through this process, and I know I can't see you all, so I make people in the room do this with me as well. So we're going to take a minute to catch our breath. One of the things that we also want to make sure we do as expected caregivers, freshman caregivers, folks that are kind of entrenched in it, is that we take care of ourselves. So we're going to take a minute, we're going to take a deep breath, and we're going to do just a really quick meditation, because caregiving, you can't love your loved one and do the things that you need to do if you aren't also taking care of yourself. So everybody in the room, if you feel so inclined and comfortable to do so, close your eyes or just gaze down. And we're going to take a nice deep inhale in through your nose. And I want you all to think B. Exhale here. One more inhale. Exhale now. We're going to do it one more time, and this time at your own pace. So I want you all to just take a minute. I know it seems silly. We're doing an education session, but it's important to take care of yourself, to catch your breath, to make sure that you're functioning as optimal as you possibly can. And so take a nice deep inhale. Exhale. Keep going at your own pace. Just a nice big inhale. And you can say in your head in a nice little mantra on your inhale, be here now. And this is always good to do as we kind of go into, thank you all for participating with me. I appreciate participation. As we go into the next phase and we talk about the entrenched caregiver, we talk about, so the folks that Ingrid was just talking about are those folks that are really moving from that freshman caregiving phase, right, into the entrenched caregiver. At that point in time, they came to us in a situation, really more of a crisis, immediate need situation. They were deep in the entrenched caregiver phase. And really in that phase, what supports are needed. And Ingrid talked about all of the different supports that were connected, and that she was able to facilitate with this family. In addition to that, right, so there's navigating multiple systems. And so with that, working with the families, working with the supports and resources that are in place, how is this impacting me? And how is this impacting my loved one? And I know that was one of the things that you worked very closely, with that, and continue to obviously work with that family, navigating this process and really talking about what supports are needed. This particular phase especially is really where an individual who is going through the caregiver process really needs to be mindful about caring for themselves as well. And Azimuth is a great partner with individuals, because not only are we helping facilitate services and resources for the individual who needs care, but it may also include helping navigate resources for the individual who is providing the care, right? I know that there have been opportunities, where that has presented itself as well. So caregiving is complicated. Caregiving is multifaceted, and it involves multiple organizations, it involves multiple services. And our goal really is to help facilitate that process, so that you can just show up and love your loved one. And we get to help kind of take care of the rest of that. So if you want to talk a little bit about kind of some of the phases that people might be experiencing when it comes to options, I'm going to stop talking for a minute and let you.
So we talked earlier, you see kind of a little throwback to that slide with the pies of the different services and needs. And one of the things that's often not clearly explained or understood is the options for where you can receive care. And it's really important when you're thinking about what you want to do with your loved one, what your goals and desires are, to kind of clarify where you see that happening. And there's, right,
Yeah.
obviously, yes, thank you.
Yeah.
So I think most of us would like to age in place. We'd like to stay in our home. It's our comfort zone. It's where we have all our stuff that we love and that we've built up over the time that we've been alive. And sometimes it's a good fit and sometimes it's not. If you want to stay at home and age in place, there are services that can help with that. I talked about it a little bit before. Live-in aides, daily aides, 24/7 assistance. There's non-skilled care, which are the aides that don't do medications for you. They don't do therapy with you, but they provide companionship, some light housekeeping, safety, really making sure that you don't fall, help you get dressed, do those kinds of things, make sure you're eating. And then skilled care would be the therapy services and the nursing disciplines. All of that can be put into place uh, for you to be able to safely remain in home and age in place. Additionally to that, you'll need some medical equipment, potentially a tub bench, a shower chair, um, maybe a ramp to be able to get in and out of the home, those types of things. All of that can happen and can be put into place to make the environment very safe.
Dog walkers too. I'm a dog person, so I always like to point out
Dog
that, you know, we
walkers.
even work with organizations to make sure that, you know, folks can keep their pets with them as
House
well.
cleaning, Meals
Mhm.
on Wheels, yep, all of those things definitely can be in place. Luckily nowadays, we, especially after COVID, there are agencies that now come and do anything, deliver groceries, deliver meals, all of those things. So that's another venue that can help with that. Secondly, then there's the senior community. Sometimes it's called a continuing care community. And if you find that aging in place is not for you, say the home has challenges, the rooms are too small, the doorway's too small, you can't get a wheelchair in or out, and you may need, or there's too many stairs, that kind of thing, you may need to look at living somewhere else. These communities typically start with an independent level of care where you can move into a cottage or an apartment. And I apologize, I'm a little under the weather, so I may need to take a drink of water in a second, but, and then you can transition if you suddenly have something happen to you or you become a little bit more disabled or needy, you can transition within that same community with caregivers that you already know there and people that you know to an assisted living piece. Assisted living typically has 3, 4, or 5 levels of care embedded within it. They are different in cost pending the care that you need. So at each level of care, you have additional services that can range from just helping you get dressed in the morning to managing you getting dressed, cutting up your food, making sure that you eat, helping you to eat, giving you your medications, all of those things. And that can really help you to stay in a place that looks like home and feels like home with assistance that you need. Then most of those facilities also typically do offer a transition to a skilled nursing facility. Not all of them, but most of them. So if, say, you fall and you break a hip or something else happens or your loved one does, and you need to transition to a skilled nursing facility, you have the ability to do that in that same community where you're comfortable. And then nursing facility, I'd just like to clarify this because there are some misconceptions around this. A nursing facility typically has 2 different levels of care. There's a residential level or branch or section where you move in there and you live there. This is not covered by Medicare because you're not receiving medical care. It's a residential place, a setting, but there is some assistance available to you every day. The other part of that is skilled subacute rehab. So not like an acute rehab hospital, but a subacute where every day you get some therapy, you get some assistance. This is a time limited admission and it is covered by Medicare and insurance carriers if you meet the criteria. This is typically like a step down from an acute care hospital. You need a little bit more help, a little bit more therapy. You're not quite ready to do that step at the home yet. So you go to this facility, and from this facility, you may transition to the home setting, Or you may transition to a senior community if you find that after that you still have some needs. And sometimes these levels flex back and forth. You can also do a respite stay at a senior community. So say you have your loved one aging in place at their home, you have all the care set up, but you need to go on vacation or you have a business trip or something that you need to do. You're concerned about leaving your loved one sort of in place without your being there. They can have a respite stay at a senior community and assisted living facility for a couple of weeks up to a couple of months, just to kind of make sure that there's always somebody there 24/7. If they ring that bell, that's going to be able to help them. And it's also a good little taste of what they may want to do in the future. So I've often recommended that kind of a respite stay when people are trying to decide, what shall I do? Will they like going to an assisted living facility? They've been resistant so far. Put them in for a little respite stay for a week or so. And sometimes people really find they enjoy that very much. And it's a nicer transition when that becomes a necessity.
Awesome, thank you so much. And I know all of this happens too, um, while you all are having the conversation and making sure that that conversation is really guided by the person's values and what it is
Absolutely.
they want. Kind of going back to that first stage that we talked about. And we're going to kind of recap all of those phases, but kind of going back to that expectant caregiver. I'm going to switch to the next slide and just kind of recap some of this. So really, when we talk about that expectant caregiver, you know, that's where we're excavating all of our wishes and values and beliefs and what it is that we want. And, you know, thinking back to what she just said with regard to the different levels that a person can access when it comes to care, you know, having had that conversation, you know, about for yourself, for your loved one, for anybody that you might see yourself in partnership with from a caregiving perspective, you know, really having that opportunity to kind of vet out, and for you all to be thinking about, you know, what do I want? How do I want my aging to look like? Right? We've been really autonomous human beings our entire life, you know, and that certainly shouldn't stop when we get older as well. So making sure that, you know, you have a clear understanding of your values and what it is you want and how you see that kind of all taking place.
And those goals might change, you know,
Yeah.
as you go along.
Oh, yeah.
You may start off thinking one thing and may even start in that and then decide, no, this really is not working, or it is not for me, or I think we need this other thing.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great point. I love that. And then, you know, when you get into that freshman caregiving, it's really looking at that part where you start, you know, looking at the things like how and where, you know, how are those services deployed? Where are those services deployed? What does that look like? You know, what is the immediate need within that? You know, what do I need to, you know, kind of get in place immediately? And always coming back to that person, you know, I love that pie chart where the person's right in the middle. You know, we constantly help individuals come back to that place and make sure that they're at the center of this, as well as the individual providing care, right? That's a unit that's really right in the center of it. And then that entrenched caregiver, you know, and that we just spent, I know you just spent a lot of time talking about, and you work with a lot of folks that are in that phase. You know, are you caring for yourself as well in that phase? Robert indicated that all of us have been caregivers at one point or another, with various family members, and really making sure that we cared for ourselves during that phase was super important.
I think that's really key, making sure that it's not selfish, that you know that you need to be able to take care of yourself. An empty pitcher can't give water, right? I know. You have to be able to take care of your loved ones, so you first have to take care of yourself. Like on the airplane, they always say, put your oxygen mask on first before you put it on your kid. Make sure you take care of you so that you can take care of that loved one.
Yeah, and then kind of one of the last two phases that we don't spend a ton of time really going into, because those are a little bit different phases, right? So the pragmatic phase is really where are the values and wishes of the loved ones still at the center, you know, of all of this. And that's when, you know, you're moving through those phases and you're through that entrenched phase, and that entrenched phase can last for years depending on the individual, you know, depending on the situation. And like Ingrid said, you might move through this continuum, but really that pragmatic stage is being present in the moment and making sure that care is being provided not just to yourself, but also doing that reevaluation, right? Are the wishes and goals and wants and needs of my loved ones still at the center of all of this? And if not, do we need to reevaluate and come back to place? And then there is that transition part, right? And that transition part of caregiving could be from a loss. It could also be that the caregiving has then been handed off to somebody else.
Right.
I know that we worked with people, and I know people who have siblings, have a lot of siblings within their family, and they've traded off care from one sibling to another, right? So one sister had the mom for about a year, and then transitioned off to another sister. And then the next sister stepped in. And so her role changed a little bit at that point in time. Then she was more peripheral, and she was in that circle of care versus being, the entrenched caregiver at that point in time. So I think if the transition, and oftentimes there's grief and healing that needs to come from that, depending on what ultimately led to that transition, is giving space to make sure that all of that gets processed, and to kind of understand. I know, when my caregiving situation transitioned, there definitely was a lot of space that needed to be allowed. I'm sure, other folks in the room who've experienced caregiving as well. You have to allow that to be part of the process as well.
And I think there's often regret that you weren't as present in the moment, or regret that you didn't do this or you didn't do that because you were overwhelmed with the regular everyday, I have to make this phone call, I have to talk to this, I have to follow up with the insurance. And that's really sort of the goal, is to try to take that off you and ensure that when you're there, like we say, you really love your loved one, and let us take care of those sort of banalities of life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Reduce the regret.
Yeah, absolutely. And give that space, to really kind of be present, in those spaces. So thank you all. This is really a great opportunity for us. I know it's something I'm very passionate about. I know it's something Ingrid's really passionate about as well, is to have that opportunity just to kind of introduce to you all what caregiving is. And we're going to step out of the way and let Darren come in and kind of take us home.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. So I am way too close to the camera. There we go. I am Darren Moorhead. I'm the other co-founder of Azimuth Healthcare. I just wanted to reiterate a couple of things that the team has talked through. One is values and the importance of values. As people age, they lose autonomy, lose control, and we want to be able to ensure that those people, our parents, our siblings that may need care, their values are reflected. Shannon did a nice job reminding us to take care of ourselves. I think the first people most of us forget about are ourselves. We don't go to the gym when life gets busy at work with our other family obligations, etc. So one of the things that Azimuth really is passionate about is making sure caregivers are able to take care of themselves. A couple of just closing comments. One is, most important to us is that we help people be where they want to be. We are not a placement company. We are truly advocates for your specific wishes and those of the person that you're helping to care for. Whether you're an expectant caregiver, have an aging parent perhaps, someone who may start to show some early signs of memory loss or medical needs, we want to make sure that we get that process started early. And it's good that those of you on the call that already work with 1752 Financial, I'm sure already have a good financial plan in place with this team. So I think that's a great piece. Then as we transition through all of these steps, even into the transition phase at the end, when the person that you've spent a lot of your time and energy caring for over the last years, months, however long it may have been, we want to make sure that you have a chance to really think through that plan. A couple of just final thoughts. We are only able to do the work that we do because people have trusted us with their stories and with the advocacy of their loved ones. I would ask if any of you have served as a caregiver or are expecting to be a caregiver, share some of your stories with us. We are looking at pulling in stories so that we can really understand where you have the most needs, where you may have had the most concerns with that, so that we can really continue to optimize this service and become even greater. Those of you who may have an aging parent or may be serving in that caregiver role, I did want to offer to any of you that we have almost 100 years of experience in this room alone of people who have worked in healthcare and served as personal caregivers. So if any of you would like a free conversation, I mean, we want to make sure that we're making an impact. I mean, our own values, all of us have been caregivers. We want to make sure that we are able to help reduce the stress and anxiety for caregivers. That's really our mission as our company. Finally, if there's anything that we can do to make an impact, feel free to reach out to any of us. We are a national company. We think we have 47 states that we're able to provide services in. So definitely able to assist there. And I believe, Matt, it looked like there was a question that popped in, and feel free to navigate us from here.
Yeah, there was, thanks a lot. That was amazing to hear, and it's a great summary of what your company can do. Yet there was a couple questions. The first one, do you work with all insurance companies, including Kaiser? The follow-up question was, do you work with family members living in another state?
Yeah, so we are happy to work with any insurance company for sure. The way we structure our work is we want to make sure that we can reduce that complexity. There was a company I heard recently, Outwit Complexity, was sort of their tagline. We want to be able to really work with any of your providers that you currently work with, any of your insurance companies, any agencies that you're really passionate about. We want to make sure that we're able to work with them. So yes, we've worked with multiple insurance companies. We are not paid by insurance. We're a private pay company, but we will work with any of your providers. To the question around family members living in another state, yes. So we do have a lot of companies, or a lot of people in different states that we have had conversations with about how we can help to reduce some of the complexity, regardless of where you're located. Definitely, we're happy to do that.
Great. Another question was, I have a family member who is in the need of help at home. What are some important questions to ask when interviewing the caregiver?
Yeah. Oh, that's a great question. I may actually call up some of our clinical experts to really talk through some of that process.
So that is a great question, and it's a very important question. The questions to ask are, firstly, you want to make sure you're hiring an agency, a company, because they will be vetting, background checking, and ensuring those persons that are coming to take care of your loved one. And if that caregiver for some reason can't come in that day, that company is responsible to send another one to you to replace that person. If you hire privately, you may not have that option, and then you're stuck with no care for that day or that shift. Yeah, the physical barriers, exactly.
Yeah.
You have to also make sure that you make it very clear what the services are that they're going to provide. So there are personal care aides, there are companions, and there are certified nursing assistants in the non-skilled services that can come and stay with your loved one. Sometimes when you call an agency, they just decide who they're going to send out to you. They usually will have a nurse actually come out, the bigger reputable private care agencies, to do an assessment with you and tell them everything that is the barrier that you're looking for, what your loved one's interests are, so that you match with a good caregiver. Do they like to play cards? Do they like to take a nap in the afternoon? Do they need help with eating? Do they not hear well? You know, those kinds of things, so that you are matched with the right person.
And I'm going to back you up even before that, because I don't know presumptively with that particular individual if that person needs care yet, right? So if that person wants to stay at home, what do they need to stay at home? And that might be care. That might be that equipment that you talked about.
Right.
You know, it might be somebody to come in. I keep going back to the dog thing. I'm stuck on dogs today. You know, they need somebody to come in and walk their dog. You know, what is it they need to stay at home? And it might be to the point where Ingrid's talking about needing services to come in. You know, it might be equipment, and that's all things that Ingrid and our folks, you know, help facilitate and coordinate with individuals, you know, aging in place. So
that's right. And don't forget that if you work with a caregiver that isn't a good match for your loved one for any reason at all, you can ask the company to send somebody else. So you're not stuck, and you're not going to have to be unhappy.
Absolutely. And I mean, so thinking through care management as a service, I mean, being able to have someone who can help advocate for that right fit, thinking through people that can help advocate for any of your loved ones' needs. I mean, that's a service that really, there's not many organizations that provide a service like that. So I think we're a bit unique in that regard.
Another question that came in was, I guess, you know, based on taking care of the caregiver, what are some ways to find extra support as a caregiver? Are there any online groups that you'd recommend?
Yeah, so there's a lot of support groups that are out there. A lot of them are diagnosis specific. So I may encourage you to look, for example, dementia or Alzheimer's care. Alzheimer's Association has a lot of resources and support groups. A lot of them are based locally in different hospitals or healthcare organizations. And if Senior Connections here in Richmond, Virginia has a great resource list of those support groups.
AARP.
AARP, and if there's any support groups we can connect people with or navigate them through, certainly reach out to us. We're happy to help you find the right support.
And usually there are also multiple Facebook
Yeah, so
support groups
there,
as well, like
there-
neighborhood support groups as well,
Yeah.
caregiving.
there are Facebook groups, neighborhood support groups as well. I mean, we're happy to help you navigate, find the right group, of course. I mean, that's something we're happy to help with.
Well, that's great. I don't see any more questions at this point, but you know, if anyone has a question, feel free to reach out to me directly and I'll connect you with them, or obviously call them. Their information's on the screen. Go to their website, email them, give them a phone call to get direct information. But I just want to say thank you again for joining us today. This was really helpful information to navigate through. And obviously, when somebody needs help, it's a difficult situation. But it's nice to know that you're there as a resource and can help and put people in the right spot. So at this point, I'm going to wrap it up and say thank you and enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. Thanks again.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.